Some days I've moped about how I'll never get back the feeling I had the first time I played Skyrim, and then some days Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 arrives on a mighty steed to sweep me off my feet at a full gallop. Armed with excellent, skill-focused melee combat and a rousing, action-packed medieval saga fit for a Hollywood blockbuster, it's one part sequel and one part coronation, bringing a lot of the original's ideas to fruition in the same way The Witcher 3 did for CD Projekt Red or Greedfall did for Spiders. No game of this scope and scale is without some technical scuff, of course, and its compelling design goals are occasionally at war with themselves just as much as our hero Henry is internally. But even still, its majesty is hard to deny. This tragic tale picks up almost immediately where Kingdom Come Deliverance left off back in 2018, though I don't necessarily think you need to have played the first one to get up to speed, thanks to the main plot being relatively easy to follow, and most of the callbacks being well explained as they happen.
There are foreign armies rampaging through Bohemia, the king is in captivity God knows where, and here we are in the middle of it all, carrying an important document.
Henry, a blacksmith's son turned unlikely warrior, is thrown into the middle of dynastic politicking and bloodshed played out by a diverse and complex cast, including your boisterous fail son of a liege lord and some truly memorable entrances from real historical figures that I don't want to spoil.
Quiet, monk! You'll just spoil the rest of our trip!
The star that shines brightest across this expanse of countryside, though, is the city of Kuttenberg. I can't speak about this place in terms any less flattering than to say that it might be one of the wonders of the modern RPG world. I don't think I've ever walked the streets of a virtual medieval city that feels this huge, detailed, and most importantly, alive. The layout is based largely on the actual town that still stands today, with parts of it following the modern street grid almost exactly. It's a wonderful place to simply wander around and discover all kinds of urban adventures, from resolving a dispute between two rival sword schools to hunting down a grisly serial killer. Yes, some of the NPCs obviously share the same voice actor, and others even share the same face, including important side characters, which can be particularly jarring. But it's hard to get too hung up on that in a place like this. When I first arrived here, I was already more than 40 hours into my 120-hour journey, and I spent multiple in-game days gleefully shopping for the sickest duds and best armor I could afford. And that's what arriving in a huge regional capital should make me want to do.
You see? I knew we'd make a deal.
The quest variety is what impressed me most of all, and that extends beyond just Kuttenberg. Very rarely are you simply sent to kill some bandits or carry a package to the next town, at least without some kind of interesting twist, moment of emotional turmoil, or decision built in. There are around 100 quests in total, and having done nearly all of them, practically every single one was memorable enough that it would stand out as a highlight in a lesser RPG.
We won't tell nobody nothing. We never saw you here.
Admittedly, some were better in concept than in execution. There was one I stumbled onto completely by accident that took me deep underground and turned my sword-swinging adventure into a horror movie, but ended up being far too short for the dread to really set in. All the same, I never felt like doing side quests ever became a chore, because I knew each one would be its own little complete episode of the adventures of Henry, stuffed with quality writing and unique objectives. It's a testament to how consistently strong they were that 120 hours did not feel way too long to me. Along the way are expansive, breathtakingly beautiful landscapes spread out over 2 open-world maps, both of which are chock full of meticulously researched details of late medieval Bohemian life. There isn't a ton of variety in terms of geography. It's all wooded hills and meadows for the most part, but that's what the region looks like in real life. It's big enough to get lost in, and the contrast between villages and open wilderness varies things up nicely enough.
Quick!
I did find it rather odd that you can't go into any of the churches though, since those would be near the top of my list if I were planning a tourist trip through 1400s Europe. If the side quests are like episodes of a TV show, the main quest is a big screen war movie that pulls out all the stops in its ambition, dialogue, and emotional range. Parts of it made me cheer, parts of it actually brought me to tears.
What the hell is going on?
Bit of a rude awakening.
And Henry's ultimate nemesis got under my skin in a way video game bad guys rarely do, making me rethink everything I'd done up to that point in what might be one of the most memorable final encounters I've ever played through. It's mature without being edgy, it drips with historical authenticity, and it has interesting questions to ask you about what it means to be a hero or a villain. It's somewhat unfortunate then that Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is both a mostly linear medieval action drama and an open world sandbox, and those two concepts don't always play well together. I'm going to skirt around spoilers the best I can, but I need to give you a specific example of the worst experience I had. I need to tell you about the Hungarian camp. In one of the late game areas, there's a military camp set up by King Sigismund, the evil conquering tyrant you've been opposing since the first hour of the first game.
Put that pig sticker away right now!
I, of course, tried to assault it by myself the second I got there, and was immediately put down like a dog. Fair enough, but for the next 40 hours of adventuring, I was plotting my revenge. A fire was lit in me, motivation to become as much of a badass as possible. I studied with all of the best blade masters, I learned the way of the bow. I saved up for the best armor, I forged by my own hand the very best sword in Bohemia. Next time I showed up at that camp, things were going to be different. So, near the end, I went back to the Hungarian camp Rambo style, and I killed everyone there. Okay, not the cook or the tailor, and not Musa. Musa's cool.
I know very well what you meant.
But probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 armed men. This was an empowering and gleeful rush, with difficult combat that tested all of my skills like never before. A real highlight of the entire journey. And these are enemy soldiers, let me remind you. I don't feel like this was an unpredictable or degenerate thing to do.
Should have yielded.
So it was a huge downer when, shortly after, I was asked to infiltrate this same camp as a spy, and Henry didn't even so much as mention that he had completely desolated the place and had a bounty on his head so large that the authorities there would skip fines and prison time and just straight up execute me if I was caught.
Murder is the most heinous of crimes. You'll fry in hell for this.
This is a required story quest with no alternate path, so the ridiculous, frustrating solution I found was to sneak up on the unkillable quest NPCs several times to talk to them and start the next cutscene before that same NPC spotted me and went running to call the guards.
I don't know nothing. We didn't do nothing.
It also ruined my near-perfect reputation because I guess killing invading enemy soldiers was a crime that the random peasants Sigismund is actively oppressing couldn't forgive, and everyone in every town ended up hating me.
That's right. Get out of here, you scoundrel.
But this was a major outlier in what was otherwise a hugely engrossing marathon-length playthrough. Other than that one total debacle, I truly adored almost every minute I spent with Henry and company. The tactical, skill-based sword combat is a sharp refinement of the already great system from the first game, though I felt like at higher levels the balance of pure stats to player skill skewed a little bit too much in favor of the former.
Big mistake, shithead.
You could probably reach the credits without actually getting particularly good at the swordplay, which was certainly not the case in the first one. But it is cleaner, more varied, and smoother to play.
End of duel!
Archery in particular has improved a lot. There's a blacksmithing minigame now, which I found a little bit clunky and unsatisfying in practice, but it is still great after the fact to be able to use a sword I made myself in combat. And alchemy has been made way more intuitive. I also really like the improved perk system, where every level up feels like it gives you multiple choices between meaningful bonuses. In the first one, a lot of the perks honestly felt more like side grades than upgrades. There was a perk that made it so sleeping outside was more restful, but sleeping in a bed was less so. The sequel's version only has the upside and not the drawback, which is important if I'm going to spend my hard-earned skill points on something rather than just picking it as a character background at the beginning. And while there wasn't a single quest as interesting or different as the monk arc from the original, getting to level up my scholarship and unlock new quest resolutions by destroying my enemies with facts and logic was also great.
Henry here is right in some respects.
Did I mention that it runs really well on my 4070 Ti, even at 4K and very high settings? I still can't even run the first Kingdom Come Deliverance at max settings on this same machine, and that game is 7 years old at this point. So the optimization work that was done here deserves a shout. There are also plenty of bugs, but most of them are of the silly sort you screenshot to show your friends that you'd expect in an RPG with this much ambition. Only rarely did something show up that actually disrupted my gameplay. In many ways, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 feels like it's picked up and run with the reactive first-person RPG torch that Bethesda left lying in the mud years ago in pursuit of a broader audience. And it has excellent melee combat, which the Elder Scrolls never came close to, even at its peak. Sometimes it's not sure if it wants to be a cinematic tale about a specific guy going on a specific adventure, or a truly dynamic open-world sandbox packed with interesting and varied side quests, and that can lead to a few immersion-shattering conflicts. But most of the time, leaning into one doesn't get in the way of the other, and you're free to go on any of its many optional adventures along the way to a thought-provoking and rousing finale for the main plot. I was delighted to get lost in its world, and it will be a long time before I forget its exceptional story. For more historical swordplay, check out our reviews of Ninja Gaiden 2 Black and Dynasty Warriors Origins. And for everything else, stick with IGN.
Don't poke at it. Just calm down.
Oh, Dentist Fortuna, you that.